I wanted to listen to all the crazy things that were happening in Congress, but I couldn't find a speaker. I am so far behind on all the content I want to be making because we can't go 2 fucking days without some historic event happening that requires some goddamn commentary. Seems like every time I start having a conversation with you fine folks about the 47 million reasons everybody hates Reagan, you hear a crash from the other room because the toddlers in Congress push Grandma's antique vase off the counter because they're desperate for fucking attention. God damn it, Matt, Daddy's trying to have a fucking conversation in here. It is a little bittersweet, though. You're watching this reality show of real world Washington every week, wondering who's going to have some dramatic fight with who and who's going to get voted out of the House, literally. And then as you're sitting there chuckling and giggling about how stupid and dysfunctional they are, suddenly you're like, oh yeah, they're making decisions that affect my life. And now I'm sad. When it comes to McCarthy getting voted out, I am gonna lose no sleep over it. I have no love for that man, and he got what he deserved. He wanted this job so bad that he put on a gimp suit, went up to Matt Gaetz, put out his wrist, and is like, "Take me hostage, Daddy." And Matt Gaetz strapped on his high heels and his leather thong, got out his whip, and made Kevin and the rest of the Republican Party his coalition of cucks. And for a while, it was entertaining for pretty much all of us to watch Kevin squirm uncomfortably under the heel of the boot he put himself under. But then his degradation kink got a little too real for all of us when suddenly we realized nobody knows the safe word and we were staring down the barrel of a government shutdown and defaulting on our debts. Now, because Kevin didn't drive the country off a cliff at the bequest of a couple of unhinged congressmen, he's become the very first Speaker of the House in the history of our country to be fired. Unlike the normal reality show drama we've grown used to from the Real Housewives of Washington, fighting over who gets to file articles of impeachment against Biden or what base you can make it to in a public theater before you get kicked out, this is going to have some implications, and what those are is kind of anybody's guess at this point. You see, the Republican Party has been imploding for years now, and it's entirely their own fault, but they keep getting these Looney Tunes elected who are just there for money and attention by any means necessary because they are sad, deprived little children. And then they become like Stewart trying to hijack the party, just running out there in the middle of everything when nobody's paying attention to them and being like, "Look what I can do." And this devolved into the party fracturing into, old school Republicans who were always still shitty people, but at least they had the decency to lie to you about it a little bit and had some party unity. And the MAGA group who are all just competing in a costume contest to see who could be the best Peter Pumpkin Eater. And when you have a group of emotionally unstable people with daddy issues fighting over the admiration of a narcissistic older man who's abusing them, they're not going to maintain a whole lot of cohesion for very long, and that's what we're seeing here. The temper tantrum tribe that's trying to mutiny their party right now by firing Kevin McCarthy is an offshoot from the overarching MAGA crowd. And the only way they can make themselves stand out from the fascism faction they were a part of is by being even more extreme than the most extremist groups in Washington. And this move was a bad move that not very many people are happy about. Across the board, Democrats and Republicans, none of the moves they've made have been popular moves. But Republicans only have a slim majority in the House, they have a minority in the Senate, and they don't have the White House. So they don't have the power and they don't have the leadership to rein in the rogues and control their own fucking party, let alone govern. Now we're going into an election year and they have to suddenly relive the very public embarrassing clusterfuck of what they're going to do about their speakership, and it's probably going to be worse than the first time because there's no precedent here. This hasn't happened before. They're figuring it out as they go now. And the people who are pulling the stunts live in very heavily gerrymandered districts and probably aren't at risk of losing their seats, but a lot of their colleagues are not so safe. So they've reached a point of reckoning and something has to give. Either the majority of the Republican Party needs to band together and really start putting the pressure on reining in the inmates that are currently running the asylum, which would mean the Republican Party would have to shun Trump, but they don't have the best leverage to make that happen right now. The extremists could start an offshoot party of their own, separate from the Republicans altogether, split their vote, and probably never win an election again. Or there's a chance that they get massacred in the next election and lose all real power they have on the federal level for a little while, which honestly might be the best thing for them. It would give the party some time to actually start working on restructuring themselves, and then they can just blame everything that goes wrong on the Democrats like they always do anyway. That would at least give them the opportunity to come back in the future a little bit more restructured and competitive. I don't know, there's probably 100 other variables I'm not even seeing at the moment, and I don't make predictions because I'm usually wrong, but something's going to happen, and it's likely going to be very uncomfortable for the Republican Party. And you shouldn't feel bad for them. Like Kevin McCarthy in his gimp suit, they begged for this. They brought this on themselves. The writing's been on the wall since Reagan, when they sold their soul to the devil for more power. Now the devil's here to collect. Who you should feel bad for, Democrat, Republican, or independent, is yourself and your fellow citizens. Because we're the ones who are suffering and have been suffering for decades. We are the victims of their gross incompetence, their arrogance, their narcissism, their greed, their complete and total inability to govern through even the most basic things, like passing a fucking budget or paying the bills on the last budget they already agreed to pay. So while it's fun for us to watch the pain that they're suffering from the consequences of their actions, just like always, it's gonna hurt us a lot more than it hurts them.